So we're here bearing witness with South Wales Animal Saving. Behind me is a truck full of sheep, and all the way down the road we have another truck and a trailer lined up. This is the life that we give them. These sentient beings that feel pain, want to live just like we do. This is how we treat them.
So what's up, y'all? This is BRG. The title of this video is Meat Eater Breaks Down After Seeing the Truth. I was inspired to make this because I've run across vegans on Twitter and a variety of other social media sites and in real life that I don't know. Like, the thing with settler colonial politics is that it ruins every fucking thing. Like, the primary contradiction, the main issue in this country is the fact that it is settled by people whose ancestors came from Europe and did horrible things to take this land, including import my ancestors to make them very, very rich. And that the fallout from that continues to this day. Also, uncritical support against cracker millionaires. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, not every white dude with a huge bank account and a big mouth is ankles. But I digress. This isn't about Fergie Chambers. This is about whether or not vegans have a point. So, anyways, I run into these people a lot in real life and on the internet, and like, this seems so self-righteous to me. Like, I understand like where they're coming from, and I'm going to spend most of this stream talking about how I understand where they're coming from. But it's important to understand that tact serves you very well in human interaction, and if you spend most of your time trying to make ordinary, average, everyday working class people feel guilty for eating a hamburger, you're not going to do very well. So what I've consistently promoted is the need to have a strategic and structural and systemic critique of these things, centering the indigenous and colonized peoples' vegan and vegetarian traditions. And settler vegans also have to keep in mind that like y'all's ancestors are responsible for this shit. Okay? Like, on the plantation, my ancestors couldn't eat fucking meat unless it was chitlins and hog maw and other what they call offal or waste meat. Y'all got the pork chops, y'all got the nice juicy steaks, y'all got all that good shit. Y'all got the chicken. We got what was thrown away. That's why to this day you go down south, we're still eating gizzards and hog maw and chitlins. So this shit ain't on us. This shit is on y'all because y'all are the ones who open up these factory farms. Y'all are the ones who open up these huge slaughterhouses and packing houses back in the day. So it's ultimately on y'all to develop the systemic and structural critique and praxis to get rid of this horrific abuse of animals. So back to the video. So this is the Big Vegan Activism Van. The Big Vegan Activism Van is a moving activism project by Surge. Our mission is to visit as many education establishments in the United Kingdom as possible, providing vegan education and outreach to students. Our day of education consists of a full day of on-campus outreach with a virtual reality headset station, followed by an evening screening of our documentary, Land of Hope and Glory, and a speech by Surge co-founder Ed Winters, also known as Earthling Ed. To encourage non-vegans to come to the screening and speech, we'll be giving out free vegan pizza to all attendees. I've actually had vegan pizza. It's very good. If you want us to come to your university, then simply get in touch and we'll book your location on the tour.
Too much. How many people know about it?
No.
No, but it's not widely available.
It's bad, isn't it?
Because even if these journals are public,
No, I'm going to watch it, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah?
how on earth could regular vegans people just go and find these journals? They're not out there, are they? There's a few...
Yeah.
that's neat. So they've got this VR headset, and I guess she was just shown something very, very un-British. See, the thing with Britain is that it exports its crimes. So, like, British people, they have a notorious stiff upper lip, but like, oh, shocking when they see something horrible in front of them.
Do you get to the very end?
Yes.
Well done.
Oh my god.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for showing me.
It's okay.
Comrade says they are on EBT and vegan. They basically can't afford to eat and eat like the same two things. Let me guess what the two things are: beans and rice.
Okay. I'm not eating it. No way.
My main issue with this, like outreach like this, I mean, it's good. It educates people, but it's still like a petty bourgeois lifestylist approach to organizing. Like, your job is just to go around and convince as many people as possible to stop eating meat. Like, I eat meat. Okay, I'm not going to stop. But at the same time, I can still realize that where my meat comes from is horrible. And I could struggle for a more sustainable approach, because not only is this cruel to animals, like horrendously cruel to animals, but like this shit is killing the environment. Like, when you pack a bunch of cows together, like, and they all start farting and shit, like that releases methane into the air, and that's what's tearing a hole in the ozone. So this is an unsustainable practice. If I recall correctly, livestock farming on an industrial scale is one of the major drivers of climate change. So there's a multiple number of reasons why we should work on scaling back this sort of industrial production of what is generally very low quality meat. Like, if you have 15,000 chickens crammed together, like the old saying, you are what you eat, like those chickens are going to be stressed out. They're going to be filthy. They're not going to have a good time. So when you pin animals up like that, same thing, your hogs, your chickens, your cows, your lambs, and you abuse the fuck out of those animals, that's not going to be very good meat. That's going to make low quality meat. That's what the poor eat.
Don't look at me like that.
Is it what you expected, or was it worse, or?
It is what I expected, but it's not the same knowing and seeing.
Yeah, it is. That's right. You're absolutely right. It's different when you see it firsthand. Thank you for watching.
Wow. Thank you.
No, it's okay. Obviously, the footage is horrible, but do you think there's a humane way to kill an animal that doesn't want to die? How do we morally justify doing these things to animals?
And see, this is another thing. Like, I'm not a fan of moral arguments. Like, I am a supporter of common sense arguments. Like, mass scale industrial farming is bad because it produces lower quality meat, and because it's fucking up the environment, and because it's fucking dangerous. Like, you're not going to sway an average, ordinary, everyday working class person with fucking, oh, is it good to kill animals? Like, that's petty bourgeois stuff. Okay? Like, my ancestors were fucking slaves. I'm sorry, but you're not going to get me to feel sympathy for a fucking sheep or a cow. Okay? I'll eat that motherfucker. And, like, that's the thing. This whole thing, like, is there such a thing as speciesism? Like, that's nonsense. Like, I've never had a cow tell me, hey, buddy, don't eat me. Okay? Like, these are, I mean, they're sentient. Yeah, they're able to have, like, thoughts and things, but, like, they are not on the level of human beings. I'm sorry if that's speciesist, but, like, I just don't, I have never seen or read or listened to a compelling argument in favor of there being such a thing as speciesism. That just sounds like some nonsense that some white post-grad made up.
You can't.
We can't. Do you think it's humane what we do?
That's quite. I don't know.
It's difficult, isn't it?
It's difficult. I think it's very subjective. I think.
Also, do not take this to mean that I'm a supporter of animal abuse. Like, I've seen some horrible shit like that stuff that Michael Vick did, dog fighting and stuff like that. Just because the animals cannot talk to us, they can still feel pain. They can still vocalize how they're feeling. Like if you kick a dog, it's going to bark, it's going to yip, it's going to make noise, it's going to feel pain. Like these are not dumb creatures, and they deserve a modicum of respect and common courtesy. Like it is a horrible, fucked up thing to abuse animals. Like you can judge a person's character by how they treat animals and by how they treat little kids. Like if you're mean to little kids and if you're mean to animals, you're going to be mean to adults. And yeah, it's a no good person that abuses and mistreats animals on purpose. But there's a happy medium. Like you can say that, yeah, animal abuse is objectively bad because that means you're a rotten, no good motherfucker. And you could also like say that speciesism is some petty bourgeois white nonsense. A lot of serial killers get their start torturing and killing kittens and puppies. Yes, that is very true. A lot of people who have what we call sociopathy, like they enter into professions where they can abuse animals and stuff like that, animal control and stuff like that. So, yeah, don't mistreat your puppies.
Yeah. How do we morally justify doing these things to animals, do you think? It's a good question, right? Hard one.
Because we've been doing it for years.
Does that make it moral? I mean, we've been killing each other for years as well, haven't we?
If this dude says moral one more time, and also there's some human beings who need a bullet for breakfast. Like, we've been killing each other for years. Okay, like slave owners. They need a fucking bullet for breakfast and a hatchet to the throat. There's all sorts of horrible people that do not deserve to live. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I don't know, because obviously I'm a meat eater, I don't really have much built-up opinion on animals.
And this also is like, this is a contradiction on the on Mr. Man Bun's part. Like, if you're saying that it's immoral to kill people and it's also immoral to kill animals, how are you going to stop people from killing animals? Like, how exactly are you going to stop people from killing animals? You're confronting a CEO of a giant industrial livestock farming conglomerate. You tell him stop killing animals, he's going to very politely shake his head and then go right back to doing what he's doing because you have no power, you have no force behind you. This dude has billions of dollars. You have a moral argument like later for that. All that Gandhi and shit, like it doesn't work. Gandhi would never have helped liberate India if he didn't have Bhagat Singh and millions of other people who were ready to string up an Englishman behind him. And even then, they disagreed with Gandhi. Also, Gandhi was a racist fuck.
Yeah. What about dogs? Is it moral to eat dogs? Is that okay?
No, because they're seen as a pet.
But what's the difference?
But would you have a cow as a pet?
You just close your eyes,
Yeah.
pretend you don't know.
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's okay, you're welcome. What I was saying to a friend is the only reason these things happen is because we pay for them to happen, which means that if we find it upsetting, we have the power to make it end. And the way that this is how we treat over 90% of the pigs in this country, in these horrible farms. And even if they're raised in nice open green pastures and they're organic or whatever, they still end up in the same slaughterhouses with the same knife across their throat. And that's just the sad reality of what happens when we exploit animals for our own personal gain. But when you see it, and as you say, you experience it, it changes. You know, you can't hide from it anymore. And what's so easy for us is we can go into a supermarket and we can buy a steak wrapped in plastic and not think about the cow, or buy bacon and not think about the pig. When you see it, you start to connect all the dots and you start to see the product coming from the animal. It's a very powerful thing to do. So to do it for yourself, and then it'll change so much about you. But I think it's amazing that you've watched it, and I'm so grateful, and you should be proud of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Honestly,
I'm just thinking about how bad that dude probably smells.
it's our pleasure. We love some animals, like my mum, for example, loves dogs, but she doesn't understand why I would love a pig or a cow. It's weird.
Maybe it's just enough, like maybe not to go fully vegan, but just reduce the meat consumption.
What you've got to remember by that is that the animals are still dying and there's still a victim involved. Even if we only...
Animals are going to die whether or not we kill them. Like, things die. later for this bourgeois humanitarianism. Things die. People die. Animals are going to die. And as a Marxist-Leninist Maoist, like, I believe that humans should have mastery over nature. Like, we could shape the natural world to our will. Animals are part of the natural world. Like I said earlier, I'm not a supporter of mistreating them for the hell of it. I'm not a supporter of horrible and unnecessary experimentation on them that's unnecessarily cruel. But like dissections, like I dissected a fetal pig and I dissected a frog in middle school biology. Like, that's how I learned about what the what's inside the animals' bodies. Like, sometimes it's necessary, but like experiments on living creatures, like, that's a no-no. There has to be some type of synthetic alternative to subjecting a living creature to horrible pain.
Like bacon once a month, that's still an animal paying the price for that. I mean, how do we morally justify taking the life of an animal?
You can't really, can you?
Right. Even no matter if we do it every day or once a month, we still can't morally justify it. Should we allow...
I'm going to try to morally justify taking the life of an animal. Like, if there's a migrant, say from El Salvador, and they need something to eat, and there's a pig nearby, that's the only sustenance available. Like, is this dude saying that it is morally unjustifiable for this starving migrant to butcher and consume this pig for him and his family? Like, my grandma used to say that white people care more about animals than they do people. Like, this is what this is giving. Like, there are plenty of circumstances in which it is morally justifiable to kill an animal. It is morally justifiable to kill an animal if it saves human life. We're all human beings. I am a human being. So I value the life and continued existence of a human being over the continued existence of a pig or a cow or a chicken.
culture to dictate morality?
Yes, we could dictate morality. Like, animals, with very few exceptions, don't have a concept of morality. Morality is a human concept. Like, you think when these animals are out fighting each other and on the savannah or out in the jungle, like, do you think that they're caring about the moral compunctions of what they're doing? No. Law of the jungle, kill or be killed, take territory, take mates, eat. That's the law of the jungle. But as human beings with functioning, developed brains and ability to reason and have complex thoughts, we were able to develop stuff like this. Concepts of morality. So it's only natural that we bend them to serve our interests. It's hell. It's only because this dude has a fully developed brain. It's only because this dude is a human being that he's able to give a shit about the well-being of animals.
Can I film the tape?
Yeah, they think
Maybe not, but I don't. I don't think. No. I've got to look at selfishly and vegetables are, and things like that aren't really my diet, and it's more meat.
Man, but you can change that. Like, you
I know
can.
I can change it, but
It's you know.
having like chickens and beef is something which. But I try and I see where you're coming from completely.
I pushed the concept away for ages because I used to get Domino's like every week. I loved KFC more than most things, you know. And I started to realize that, you know, because I couldn't morally justify.
There's this fellow named, well, I didn't mean to assume your gender, I'm sorry. There's this individual named Baudrillard in my chat. He says, they say, sorry, humans are not inherently better than an ant or a mosquito or any sentient being. Like, are mosquitoes sentient? Speciesism is discrimination or unjustified treatment based on an individual species membership. Thinking of sentient beings as equals is imperative for the lessening of exploitation and cruelty. It sounds like postmodernist white jibber jabber. Like, I'm sorry, bro, but I've got more sense than a fucking mosquito.
It. I was living in a state of a bit of moral hypocrisy almost, where I said, you know, I love animals, I don't wish harm on animals, but I was paying for harm to be inflicted on animals.
it's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's still life. You wouldn't kill a person to eat them, would you?
A life is a life.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm really happy to hear that. Have you got some
Yeah,
cards?
I've got the flyers, yeah.
Fantastic, good for you, man.
I haven't got any of these. But
Please help yourself.
I'll take one of them,
Yeah, take one of these as well. These are the same flyer.
Okay.
See, I went vegan after watching this documentary, Earthlings. It was it kind of just opened my eyes to so much that I had no idea about. And I realised that I preached loving animals, and I hate people that commit cruelty to animals, but at the same time I was guilty of paying for people to inflict cruelty on animals, you know, and that's how I kind of came to the realisation that veganism for me was the only way I could morally align my actions with my morals, you know.
And there's a 22-day vegan.
We actually have it here. I mean, if you want to sign up, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, it's just a really great way of just trying it and seeing how you feel. And if after 22 days you feel good for it, then stick at it, man. You know. Right, we're back in just a second. Thank you.
Torturing, maiming, and eating pigs. One of the methods.
So I guess basically the strategy is to like get people to come to this movie, and then I guess like show them trauma porn. I mean, it's very effective propaganda, but like I'm still not buying this whole speciesism and we are morally obligated to not eat animals bullshit. Like that just sounds like some white nonsense to me. I'm sorry.
Methods of slaughter for pigs in the UK is the gas chamber, where groups of pigs are herded into metal cages, which are then dropped into a chamber that is filled with carbon dioxide. Once inside the chamber, the pigs scream and thrash, fighting for their lives for up to 30 seconds.
So basically in Canada, they found recently, a couple of years ago, that there was a mass shortage of people applying to work in slaughterhouses. They couldn't fill this.
Baudrillard is very talkative tonight. They say that doesn't make you more important or have more worth. Yes, it does. I'm more important and have more worth because I'm me. In fact, it could be argued we are more destructive and cruel because we have a conscience. So this sounds like some Ann Prim shit. Like, what are we supposed to do? Return to monkey? We can refrain from exploitative behaviors and what have you. You're free to believe what you believe, but I don't know. It just reads like a bunch of crap to me.
Spaces, surprise, surprise, right? So what they did.
But if you think that you're on the level of a mosquito, be my guest. Buzz, motherfucker.
Is they got Syrian refugees that were coming to the country and made them work in the slaughterhouses instead to fill up the gaps, right? How sick is that? So you've got people escaping war-torn Syria, a country that was partially bombed by Canada themselves. They're refugees fleeing war. They say, hey, come to Canada, live a good life. By the way, you've got to slaughter animals every day of your life. I mean, it's just sickening. This is...
Okay, so did they not slaughter animals in Syria? Like, this dude is just so insulated from ordinary everyday life for the majority of people around the world. Like in China, there's slaughter of animals. In Africa, there's slaughter of animals. They do it in Egypt. They do it in Ghana. They do it in Syria. They do it in Saudi Arabia. They do it in Palestine. Like, people love to eat animals. People like protein. I understand you can get protein from vegan sources, but like, it's part of people's culture. You're not going to change people's culture and way of living by showing them admittedly traumatic and horrible images of pigs being tortured in capitalist industrial facilities in these factory farms. And then you are trying to weaponize Syrian refugees who probably eat meat to make your moral point. In fact, just the opposite from return to monkey. Become compassionate and thoughtful and exploit all things less. Advocate for understanding and compassion. Petty bourgeois hippie bullshit.
And this is the exploitation I'm referring to. The exploitation is on a mass scale. It's not just, I mean, the farmers and workers, okay, fair enough, we've established that maybe not the bad people, but the industry officials, the people that are making all the big money from it, they knowingly exploit humans, they don't exploit animals, they don't exploit children by putting these hideous labels on things, making us go against our innate compassion, buying products that have these terrible kind of marketing ploys on us. It makes us, we've been lied to, right? That's the thing, we've been lied to our entire lives, fooled and deceived into purchasing these products and believing that these things can be done in somewhat of a humane manner. I mean, these industries have one thing in mind, and that's profit. And people say to me, oh, vegan propaganda. I say, go out, walk down the street, look at every billboard, every bus stop, every magazine, and tell me what you see. You see these pictures glamorizing flesh, glamorizing the murder of animals. And people say that when we show the reality,
Even if the advertisements didn't exist, people would still wear fur and leather and eat meat.
we're using propaganda, but we're not airbrushing this, we're not taking glossy photos. This is the candid reality of what goes on. And what we have to understand is that we are being lied to and manipulated.
Candid reality can be manipulated for propaganda purposes, by the way.
Almost every single day when we turn our TVs on, the McDonald's advert comes up. Think about Happy Meals. This is what we're marketing to children, Happy Meals. This is what happens to animals. We cut them up, mutilate them, put them into a patty and call it a Happy Meal. It's sick. And we have to wake up and understand that, you know, these industries want to profit from us. What's empowering to know is because these things only happen because we pay for them to happen, that means that we have all the power to make it.
So he has a primitive critique of capitalism, but you can tell that he centers veganism, which is wrong. Like, if you don't have an anti-capitalist critique at the center, you're going to end up on some petty bourgeois hippie bullshit.
Stop. It's a simple supply and demand situation. I think what often happens is we look across the world, we see, for example, Syria or famine or whatever it may be, and we think, God, these problems are huge, far bigger than we are. And for the most part, they can be, and we rely on our governments to make changes, which they never do and they never will. But the problem is, or the good thing is...
All right, this dude is boring me. So, naturally, when I research a topic or when I talk about a topic, I always go to what black people are thinking about it. Like, are there black vegans, and how do black vegans, first of all, cook? And like, what is their rationale for becoming a vegan? So this is good history. The African-American relationship with veganism may seem like a trend in recent years, but that is far from the case. In fact, there is a long-standing legacy of plant-based meals in the black community. Only recently we seen a significant increase. As more black Southern chefs begin to cook with plant-based diets in mind, they are also continuing a dietary tradition that honors a heritage stretching back at least thousands of years. Dr. Frederick Douglass Opie wrote in his book, Hog and Hominy, Soul Food from Africa to America, that while the traditional West African diet did contain meat, usually hunted and obtained that way, it largely consisted of darker whole grains, dark green leafy vegetables, and colorful fruits and nuts. The African and Amerindian diets contained far more vegetables and legumes than the Europeans consumed. Once in America, when allowed, enslaved people grew gardens to help supplement their diet. Author Michael W. Twitty described the gardens in his book, The Cooking Gene, as little landscapes of resistance. Resistance against a culture of dehumanizing poverty and want. Resistance against the erasure of African cultural practices. Religion also played a central role in African Americans deciding to choose a plant-based diet. Seventh-day Adventists, a Protestant offshoot that opened membership to African Americans in the 1800s, promotes a vegetarian and kosher lifestyle. Members of the Nation of Islam are also vegetarian. Elijah Muhammad, a former leader, wrote 2 volumes on plant-based eating. How to Eat to Live outlined the correlation between eating and mental and spiritual health. In the book, he notes, we are, by nature, vegetable and fruit-eating people. Muhammad encouraged members to stop eating soul food, noting that modern-day food did not contain healthy nutrients. This is actually correct. Like, our food is loaded with so much, like, the American diet is basically high fructose corn syrup and starch, and a variety of chemically made additives and bullshit. That's why we're so addicted to it. Like nutty bars, oatmeal cream pies, TV dinners, pot pies that you heat up in the microwave. Like, I grew up eating that shit. That shit is bad for you. Sodium, starch, high fructose corn syrup, dyes, shit like that, preservatives, like that shit will kill you. Like I guarantee you that the average millennial that grew up like I grew up, that grew up working class or lumpen proletarian, our lifespan might be capped at 70 because of the shit we ate when we were kids. Vegetarianism also has links to black social activism. Perhaps the best example is through comedian and civil rights leader Dick Gregory. He's also from my hometown, St. Louis. In his book, Dick Gregory's Natural Diet for Folks Who Eat, Cooking with Mother Nature, he wrote The Philosophy of Nonviolence, which I learned from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during my involvement in the civil rights movement, was first responsible for my change in diet. In another book, Dick Gregory's Political Primer, he explained, when Americans become truly concerned with the purity of the food that enters their own personal systems, when they learn to eat properly, we can expect to see profound changes affecting the social and political system in this nation. The two systems are inseparable. So you can contrast this to that morally wishy-washy hippie bullshit that we saw from the British dude. Like, this has a thoroughly developed, reasoned, historically based critique of capitalism and slavery. And it's historically based because, like, this is the stuff we ate in Africa. Like, we didn't have cows and all that shit. Like, what meat we ate, we hunted ourselves. We processed, we butchered ourselves. That's a dramatic contrast to the European diet. That's why, for a while, like, they were amazed at how, like, healthy we were. Like, we were taller than them. We were stronger than them. Like, every now and then I run into a white dude who's like, hey, man, do you work out? Do you lift weights? Like, no, this is how I'm naturally built. Like, this is how my ancestors were built. Like, we worked in a fucking cotton field, bro. Like, I don't do shit, although I should. You also have KRS-One, who put vegan lyrics in his songs. Baudrillard, I'm about to ban you. I'm sick of you. Enough. Genug. Anyways, KRS-One always peppered his songs with lyrics about what we're eating. Going beyond personal health, he was tackling our industrialized food system and getting at the way animal agriculture can affect human health. Ultimately, the combination of Gregory and KRS-One started Terry on his own journey to veganism. So, yeah, very good analysis. And, like, I like how, like, this stuff is actually explained decently. And I also found this good video from my sister. We're going to watch a little bit of this.
OMG, y'all. Hello, what's popping? My name is Happy Back Legends, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. Yes, so today I'm filming something that I've really been wanting to film for like weeks. This video idea has sort of morphed and changed. What I ended up doing was just kind of taking all my ideas and bringing them into one video. So this video might be long. I'm gonna do my best to try to keep it within 20 to 30 minutes. I'm hoping it doesn't exceed that. But I've been spending a long time on this video doing the research, and I think this is going to be a good video. And so I want to make sure that even if it is longer than 30 minutes, I do put all
I didn't know Oreos were vegan.
the information that I've collected about this topic into this video. I also just want to be clear. If you're a white vegan, please don't send this to like your one black friend, okay? Like, don't do that, please, because
I already like her. Like, this is what white vegans are good at. As a matter of fact, this is what, like, white people who fancy themselves leftists are good at in general. Like, hey, here's this black person. Say this. Listen to this. Like, it's tokenization. And it always kills me because, like, white leftists are so opposed to identity politics when it's critiquing them. For example, somebody brought up the whole situation with Fergie Chambers yesterday. Like, somebody mentioned, oh, you disagree with 99% of African communists. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, there's billions of black people. Some of them are Maoists, like me. Some of them are revisionists. Some of them are nihilists. Some of them are even fascists, like Idi Amin. And it always kills me how white people oppose identity politics until it could be used in their interests. But you know, the more I see of white leftists, especially after the nonsense on Twitter today, like the less time I have for them. These are not serious people. They're just here. They're very loud.
Number one, I'll hate you for it. Number two, it's hella cringe. You're giving hella cringe energy. Number three, you're giving colonizer energy. Number four, if you do that, your genitals have to be stinky, because only someone with stinky genitals would do something stupid like that. But
I can testify personally to the fact that white people have stinky genitals.
anyways, child. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, we're going to be talking about the history of black people and veganism. But we're also going to be talking about why black people make such good vegans. We're going to be talking about historically vegans around the world and vegetarians around the world and how long they've been doing this kind of shit. And I'm also going to talk about black activists who've been vegan for decades, who we look to as leaders in our community. And I think that those people are the perfect people who've made the connection between like oppression and liberation and big ideas like that. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge the fact that these people are also vegans and or vegetarians. Well, not and or vegetarians. Because like I said,
I also like white vegans, they tend to make that central to their politics and central to their identity. Black people, we take a more intersectional approach. Our veganism or our vegetarianism is not our entire politics. It's informed by something else, namely the fact that we are a colonized people, we are a majority proletarian, working class people, etc. White people, because they have very little to go on in terms of material politics. I mean, we've got fucking billionaire brats running around acting as if they are some sort of authority on Marxist principles and discipline just because they throw a few $100,000 around every now and then to organizations that they personally like. But that's neither here nor there. Like, black people, first of all, we don't have money like that. And then second of all, like, we have to center our politics around the fact that we are black first. Like, that's our primary contradiction. If the police kill me one of these days, first of all, y'all better riot. And then second of all, like, they killed me not because I'm a communist, not because I'm gay, not because of my eating habits, but because they looked at me and they saw black, runaway slave, bad person, shoot. That's what they're there for. The police were developed in this country to harass and incarcerate and murder people because they are black. So that is why our politics develop around our blackness. And white people, ironically, their politics develop around their whiteness. They just are manipulative enough and sneaky enough to not admit it and couch it in some sort of fake-ass workerism. Like, when I hear a white person complaining about identity politics, like, I really don't see that much of a difference between them complaining about wokeness.
it ties in together the framework of their activism, which is anti-oppression, pro-liberation. And it's really
Matter of fact, I'm going to put that on Twitter. That's a banger.
interesting, especially to see people who were working during, you know, major historical movements in our culture and in our community, things like working with Dr. King, things like working with the Black Panthers. So I'm really excited to get into the meat and potatoes, vegan meat and potatoes of this video. But before we get started, I just want to say this video is sponsored. Yes, this video is actually sponsored by my patrons over at my Patreon. Thank you guys for being badass bitches and for supporting my work. If you would like to be a badass bitch as well, the link for my Patreon is down below. I will also probably put it in the pinned comments as well. If you want to be a bad bitch but you're on a budget, you can also become a YouTube member. My YouTube memberships are only 99 cents per month. It is just an extra way to support my work. No pressure or anything. Even if you can't financially support me, liking my videos, commenting, sharing them, that is also support, and it is really, really appreciated as well. So finally, we are going to get into it. So the first topic, also, I just want to be clear, there will be a table of contents and timestamps and all that jazz if you do want to skip around from topic to topic. And if there's a topic that I'm going to address that doesn't interest you, you can skip around. Feel free to do that. But first of all, I wanted to address the history of more so vegetarians, not fully vegan, but vegetarians of color around the world globally, because I think this is a really important topic when discussing veganism. I think a lot of us, we have this idea of veganism as weird white hipsters from Los Angeles who are freaks and are really out of touch with themselves and with other people. And I completely understand why that narrative has been spread. It makes sense to me, but I think that that's really incorrect. And I think that it's almost, it's ignorant, number one, but it is kind of offensive to these cultures and to these people that have been eating vegetarian for centuries, whether it's due to, like I mentioned,
Yeah, like I have no problem with people who have been doing this stuff for centuries for whatever reason, because maybe it may be hard to raise animals in their climate, or because they have to take advantage of naturally grown substances that are found in their environment. But like, she's correct in saying that like we cannot just take white veganism and use it to represent all veganism. That's wrong. And that does a disservice to people who are actually principled vegans, who are not assholes or self-righteous pricks. Like, she started out this video by telling white followers not to send this stuff out to black people or non-white people because she knows how white vegans are. Once again, we see the primary contradiction.
mention their cultures, their religions, or their philosophical beliefs. I think it's important to acknowledge these vegetarians of color that have been doing this shit for centuries, okay? It's not new, it's been here for a while, and it's probably gonna stay here for a while. The future is looking more and more vegan every day, to be honest, so, you know, why don't you jump on this train?
I also think that's correct. Like, if this earth is going to survive in its current form, meaning habitable for humans, like, we're definitely going to have to dramatically scale back meat production. Because like I've said earlier, like, it's bad for the environment. It's destroying the ozone layer. You cannot just cram millions and millions of cows into small spaces and expect them not to rip a giant ass hole in the ozone layer with their farts. So the future may not be totally vegan, but we're definitely going to be eating a lot less meat. And I'm fine with that. Like, I don't need to eat a hamburger every fucking day. That leads to nothing but heart disease.
That was convincing. So, first of all, I wanted to address this quote that I got from, I believe it was The Guardian. Her name is Nicola Cagaro, and she is a chef. And she cooks for this group of, like, female, like, soldiers who go after, like, poachers, and they all eat vegan. They're called the Akashinga, and
I've heard of them. They're based.
they're in Zimbabwe, I believe. And she said, and I quote, it is important to spread veganism around Africa because it originated in Africa. Our ancestors didn't eat as much meat. It is through colonization that we learned these crazy meat-eating practices. So when I think of African vegan food, I think of a lot of Ethiopian food. I think of injera. I think of rice. I think of lentils. I think of really, really warm, good soups and stews and dishes that are seasoned and flavorful. And moving slightly with
AKA not white vegan food. Like, that's the thing. Like, I've had Ethiopian food, like Ethiopian vegan cuisine. Like, I love lentils. I love rice. I love injera. It's like sourdough bread, except it's really flat. It's like a huge pancake. And like, Africans and Indian people know how to do vegan food. Like, they are the kings and queens and other various nobles of vegan food. Like, just flavorless tofu bullshit. Like, that's what Europeans eat. That's what Americans eat. Of course, if you rely on white people for your food, or judge an entire body of food by what Europeans eat, by what white people eat, you're fucking up. Because white people don't know how to cook, unless they're Italian, or Greek, or Turkish.
from Africa, we have the Ital diet, which is followed by the Rastafarian people. This diet is all natural. There's a lot of rules to this diet. They don't eat meat, although some will eat fish. However, there's a lot of rules surrounding how they have to clean the fish and prepare the fish, and most Rastafarians will just opt out of eating fish entirely. They don't consume alcohol, no cigarettes, and no drugs. But apparently, herbs and plants are not considered drugs. So I wanted to address these diets because these diets have been around for centuries. People have been eating this way. It's actually not that hard to veganize a lot of foods. I live in California, and so I grew up consuming like Mexican food, and Mexican food is actually in my opinion, very easy to veganize. Lentils, rice, tortillas, you got corn, you got cabbage, you got carrots, you have all sorts of like amazing seasonings and flavors. You got chili powder, you got your onion powder, you got your garlic salt. So there's just so much things you can do. You got, oh my god, how the fuck could I even forget cilantro and green onions? Like, what the hell am I even talking about right now? My point is, there's a lot of vegetables in a lot of ethnic cultures, and it's really not that hard to veganize your favorite foods that have been in your life, in your culture for a really long time. You know what I mean? Now I want to move towards Asia and India. We're going to talk about Taoism, Buddhist, Hindus, and Jainism. Sikhs, I forgot to mention Sikhs. Oftentimes these people are vegetarians. However, it does not outwardly state that you have to be vegetarian in order to follow these religious ideologies and beliefs. However, most of these people who do follow these religions tend to stick to a vegetarian diet. I used to work at a hotel right near Disneyland, and so it was really common for me to have to make vegetarian sandwiches for people from all around the world, and it was really interesting. I would get in conversations with them about their religion and about their culture. And actually last week when I was moving, I was at this boba shop and we went to Wabagra, and I was outside with my friend, and this girl was like staring at me. Turns out she was actually Indian and she was vegetarian, and she saw my face mask which says "Go Vegan." Do I have it? Oh yeah. This is my face mask from my Teespring store, and it says "Go Vegan" on it. And so she saw it and was like, she wanted to spark up a conversation, but she didn't know how. And so we started talking, and it was really, really cool to like hear her perspective on being a vegetarian, you know.
It's also amazing like how differently black people talk about things and how white people talk about things. Like that dude, that British dude, he was so fucking just self-righteous and arrogant. Like, we must. Is it morally correct to murder an animal? We must all go vegan. Like her, like this sister, like she's making well thought out arguments. She's not being judgmental except towards white vegans, but everybody judges white vegans. She's not being a prick. She's just calmly and patiently laying out why she believes what she believes and giving a well-researched and well-thought-out history. She's not trying to shock you with trauma porn. Like, there's just like a difference in how black people interact with people and how white people interact with people. Colonizers talk differently than the colonized.
She was like, I've never eaten meat in my culture. She didn't specify if she was like Sikh or if she was Hindu, I don't know. But she said, I'm Indian, and in my culture we don't eat meat. In my religion we don't eat meat, and I've never eaten meat. And I was like, oh my god. She's like, I do eat dairy and stuff like that. And we just had a really, really good conversation, and we both got like the tofu bowl. So it was kind of funny because what happened was we both reached for the tofu bowl, and that's how I ended up realizing she was vegetarian. Anyways, child, my point is, there are cultures and religions that have literally been eating vegetarian for centuries. This isn't new. And to ignore that, I feel like is so ignorant, it's kind of offensive. We really should be listening from these people. We should be taking their recipes, okay? Well, not taking them, but you know what I mean. Like, we should be using their recipes. I want to address the Mexican-American labor and human rights activist, Cesar Chavez, who was a vegetarian, which I never fucking knew that. When I was so shocked to learn that he was a vegetarian, that completely blew me away.
He also had pretty shitty politics.
And I wanted to read some of the quotes that he said about vegetarian before I move on to my next topic, because I think what he had to say was really beneficial. We cannot hope to have peace until we respect everyone, respect ourselves, and all living beings. Racism, economic deprival, dogfighting and cockfighting, bullfighting, and rodeos are all cut from the same defective fabric: violence. We cannot defend and be kind to animals until we stop exploiting them. Exploiting them in the name of science, exploiting them in the name of sport, exploiting them in the name of fashion, and yes, exploiting them in the name of food. There is an interconnectivity, like Caesar mentioned, with oppression and liberation and economic deprival, which we're going to get more into. So, my next topic is, why do black people make such great vegans? This portion of the video, I'm partially trying to convince you to go vegan, but if you're black, but also I want to show you that black people are kind of spearheading the movement, and we have been for decades. I mean, we've been out here doing the damn thing. Are we really that?
Of course, like, black people are the vanguard of everything in this country. Every cultural movement, like, we're basically the tastemakers of the world. Music, dance, fashion, even hairstyles and how we get our nails done. Well, I don't get my nails done. I bite my nails. But like, we are the world's tastemakers. That's why you have Koreans that are basically doing R&B. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that black people are spearheading the vegan movement in the United States.
Surprise. I just want to be clear that there are more black people in the US that are vegan than there are actually white people. Black Americans are almost 3 times more likely than white Americans to go vegan. Black people, I believe 8% of black Americans are vegan, whereas only 3% of white Americans are vegan. All my sources and citations will be linked down below, by the way. If you want to check out any of this information for yourself, I would highly encourage you to do so. There is a huge Afro-vegan movement, and this movement has history. And there's a long line of black activists who've been doing this thing for decades. And a lot of what they've been addressing is the fact that black people in our community, I feel like a lot of us have a disconnect from what we put on our plate. I feel like eating disorders in the black community are really rampant, and this is something that we don't talk about because eating disorders are a white girl disease. And that's really unfortunate because honestly, a lot of us simply do not know how to eat, and a lot of us don't think about what we're putting on our plates. Black people are, I believe, one of the highest groups of people to have preventable diseases related to food. And in my opinion, I think that's really devastating. I think that's so unnecessary. Let's look at something that a lot of us have issues with. Dairy. Black people are extremely fucking lactose intolerant, okay? I believe it's something like 70 to 80% of us cannot properly digest dairy. That number even goes up higher for Asian people. This is extremely problematic. Think about it. Our government is telling us to ingest dairy, yet a lot of us, our bodies physically cannot digest it. Why are they pushing something that makes us sick, makes us throw up, gives us the runs, gives us bubble guts, all sorts of damages and diseases to our body? Why are we listening to our government telling us to consume something that makes us sick? It makes no sense. And I feel like one of the things that makes black people go vegan is that connection to dairy, because a lot of us are like, hey, yeah, dairy does make us sick. At the time, my intention was not to go vegan, but I gave up dairy back in like 2017, 2018. And I did it because I was extremely lactose intolerant, and it got to the point where it was like, I am sitting on the toilet for 2 hours after eating a bowl of ice cream. This really isn't worth it. There's almond milk ice cream. Now, and that was in 2017-18. Now there's like oat milk ice cream and pea protein ice cream. And fucking coconut milk ice cream. There's way.
Coconut milk ice cream sounds dope. Pea protein ice cream does not. That sounds absolutely fucking disgusting. But I probably love it if I eat it. Of course, I love any type of ice cream.
Way more options than there was back in 2018, 17 when I was doing that shit, okay? And I think one of the reasons why a lot of us make that connection between dairy is because black people, I feel like it's not that shocking to us that our government would lie to us. Like, I feel like a lot of us aren't surprised that our government would lie to us for profit or for their own benefit without any care for the people that they're preaching these ideologies to. You know what I mean? There's so many ways to veganize, like, food. And I feel like black people are amazing cooks. And I feel like it really would not be hard for us to teach ourselves how to veganize our favorite foods. One of my goals with this channel is going to be sharing more recipes, more what I eat in a day, what I eat in a week videos, to show people what a normal, healthy, balanced, mostly whole food, plant-based, but also some vegan junk food diet looks like. The amount of things you can do with chickpeas and beans alone, chickpea pizza, chickpea salad, chickpea cookies. Just cook them up, put them in an air fryer. I mean, there's so much shit you can do. You know what I mean? I feel.
So, in the interest of time, I'm going to have to cut Sister off, but I'm going to link her video. This is Happy Black Legends, and yeah, she's dope. So I talked about slaughterhouses earlier. This is where, if you live in the first world, most of your meat is going to come from. So this article talks about how slaughterhouses are places that authorize workers to kill animals. There were 2,785 slaughterhouses in the United States in 2022. These animals include cows, pigs, and sheep. this number does not cover poultry and fish slaughter plants, which include 359 federally inspected poultry slaughterhouses, probably countless other non-inspected, meaning illegal slaughterhouses. Roughly a dozen cattle slaughterhouses in the U.S. kill more than half of cattle in this country each year. Which state kills the most animals for meat? Nebraska kills the most cows. Iowa kills the most hogs. Georgia kills the most chickens. And Minnesota kills the most turkeys. In the field of animal protection, cruelty usually describes harm to non-human animals, but it's important to realize that harm occurs in many ways, including to workers, communities, and the wider environment that can sometimes be forgotten in dominant vegan and animal rights narratives. Like slaughterhouses are fucking nasty. They stink. Nobody wants to live by them. Like only the poorest of the poor live up on a slaughterhouse because like they just pump all of that shit, all of that waste. Like imagine getting up every morning smelling cow shit, smelling chicken shit, smelling hog shit, smelling hogs in general. So yeah. So how is your food prepared at a slaughterhouse? For animals that are transported to a slaughterhouse, they are often starved. Fish, for example, become easier to handle when deprived of food. The RSPCA welfare standards for farmed salmon caution that depriving fish who are used to regular feedings will usually have an adverse impact on welfare. Inhumane transportation. Meat supply chain planners factor in that a certain number of animals who are forced onto trucks that carry them long distances away from the farms where they are raised alive will die during the trip to the slaughterhouse. It's estimated that annually in the United States, the number of animals that die in transit include 20 million chickens, 330,000 pigs, and 166,000 cows. Dead on arrival is one of 4 major violations that federal food inspectors consistently found at U.S. poultry slaughterhouses in 2021. So basically, when the inspectors aren't around, they will literally cut up, butcher a dead animal that's been out there for God knows how long, and pack it up and send it out to the store for you to buy and serve up to your family. USDA inspector said that at Tyson Foods in Nashville, Arkansas, we observed a bird crushed and suffocated between a damaged, lifted, bent floor of the trailer and the wire of the cage. So they're just going to pluck the bird out and make chicken nuggies out of them, chicken tendies. Animals are brutally beaten. Beating animals is not an uncommon occurrence in the world of meat production. In one of their many investigations, Mercy for Animals found that pigs on U.S. factory farms had their testicles ripped out without any pain relief. Workers then grabbed some baby pigs by their back legs, swung the pigs high up in the air, and killed them by slamming their heads against the ground. A 2018 Animal Aid investigation video revealed a worker slamming a gate shut on an animal's head and a bewildered cow being beaten on the way to her death. Sick shit. Cattle prods. They also used these on protesters in the South during the Civil Rights Movement. Using electric cattle prods is considered a use of force that can be classified as gentle, intense, or rough. When electric prods or other restraining devices touch cows' bodies, cows tend to moo and bellow. Their cortisol levels also tend to increase, which is a sign of stress. In a 2018 study of 242 slaughterhouse trucks unloading 8,132 cows in Uruguay, researchers found that workers used sticks and/or electric prods in 80% of unloading events to force animals off the truck. Shouting was used in 60% of unloading events. Most animals in the study, 90%, had 1 or more bruises. Evil. Animals are tortured and abused. In Oklahoma, workers are trying to use a captive bolt stun gun on pigs that were already shackled and bleeding out, indicating that they knew the pigs were still conscious. tail twisting. You basically twist the cow's tail, your oxtail, at 90 degrees or more near its base such that it might break. Electric prods hitting cows. Slaughterhouse workers also suffer alongside the animals they kill. Beyond the textbook expectations of the tasks that define a slaughterhouse butcher, workers' rights advocates have also documented instances of on-the-job abuse of slaughterhouse workers, many of which are undocumented migrants. They are often contracted into temporary positions that leave them feeling worthless and of second-class status. High rates of PTSD and psychological trauma. People who kill animals in slaughterhouses have been found to have higher self-reported rates of somatization, anxiety, anger hostility, phobic anxiety, and psychotism than office workers and retail meat packing workers. So, yeah. This is how slaughterhouses kill chickens.
Australians eat more chicken than beef and pork combined. Add to this our huge appetite for eggs, and that's a lot of chickens being raised for food around the country. I'll be right back. And eventually, all of them need to be killed. In Australia, around 500,000 chickens are slaughtered every day. That requires dozens of slaughterhouses, each killing thousands of chickens every hour. Australia's largest chicken slaughterhouse alone kills 2 million chickens a week. So how does the chicken industry handle the enormous task of killing such a large number of animals? Most meat chickens are killed at only 7 weeks of age. For layer hens, it can be closer to 18 months old, the average age at which they stop laying enough eggs to be profitable to the egg industry. To discuss how these chickens are killed, we need to understand the language that the animal agriculture industry uses. Processing is the term used to describe turning living animals into meat. Stunning refers to rendering animals unconscious before they are killed. Slaughterhouses use 2 main processes to kill chickens: electric stunning and gas chamber stunning. Electric stunning begins with the chickens arriving at the slaughterhouse packed in transport crates. Workers then shackle chickens by their legs upside down onto an overhead conveyor. Shackling is painful and stressful for the birds. Chickens' hips can be dislocated and their legs broken as they are shoved into the shackles, and their wings can be injured as they flap in distress. The conveyor then carries the chickens towards a shallow water bath that has been electrified. As their heads are dragged through the water, they are electrocuted and rendered unconscious. The conveyor then moves the unconscious chickens to an automatic cutter, which slits their throats. The chickens bleed to death while shackled on the conveyor. Finally, their bodies are immersed into a tank of scalding water to loosen their feathers. The carcasses then go on to be fully processed to become meat. That is how the system is designed to work. However, things can and do go wrong. Some chickens are only paralyzed by the electric current, leaving them conscious and able to feel pain. Others lift their head above the electrified bath and are not stunned at all. These birds are then fully conscious as their throats are slit by the automatic cutter. It is also possible for the auto cutter to miss, leaving birds alive. A worker stands by with a knife to manually slit the throats of any birds who have survived, but the system is not perfect, and some birds are immersed in the scalding water tank, while fully conscious.
This is hard to watch. I need commentary. I'm sorry. I mean, I could just sit here and piss myself, but I don't think you all would like me very much if I did that.
Gas chamber stunning of meat chickens also begins.
So this is Australia. They basically use the same methods as they do in the UK and Canada and the US. Yeah, settler colonial countries all have similar methods of butchering both people and animals.
With the birds trucked to the slaughterhouse in crates. Slaughterhouses use various methods to gas chickens. In this system, the crates are placed onto a conveyor. The chickens are carried into a gas chamber, which is sealed shut, and carbon dioxide is pumped in. Timings vary between methods, but after about a minute, the chickens are rendered unconscious. Some slaughterhouses seal the birds in the chamber until they are dead, which takes about 5 minutes.
That's fucking sick. Yeah, so to start to answer the question, like, do vegans have a point? Yeah, like, this type of shit is unconscionable. This is cruel. This is horrible. This is capitalism in action. They don't give a shit about the animals or the quality of the produce that they're giving you. They care about making money. So, yeah, they're just going to stack these poor creatures on top of each other, put them up in the gas chamber, a literal fucking gas chamber, and gas them to death. That's fucking evil. Poor birdies.
In this system, the dead or unconscious birds are then carried out of the chamber in their crates and tipped out onto another conveyor. From there, they are shackled, bled, and scalded in a similar process to birds who have been electrically stunned.
Down south, my grandma killed her own chickens. Like, back then, you actually had to pick up a chicken and wring its neck. And yeah, you're still killing an animal, but like, that's still somewhat more humane than loading hundreds of birds together into a gas chamber, shutting it, and murdering them with carbon dioxide and watching as they die.
Gassing of spent layer hens usually happens not at a slaughterhouse, but on the farm itself. The hens are taken from their shed and moved into a large airtight container. As the carbon dioxide concentration in the container increases, some birds panic. The chickens then experience a powerful and urgent sensation known as air hunger. They struggle to breathe. Some die from cardiac arrest, and some from asphyxiation. Others suffocate beneath the bodies of other birds. Once the hens are dead, their bodies are tipped out and sent to be processed, or may be composted on the farm. Layer hens are smaller than meat chickens. Their bodies aren't large enough to be commercially killed and processed for human-grade meat. Instead, they are often used in soup, stock, or pet food. When we see chicken meat or eggs in the supermarket, we are seeing only the very end of an individual chicken's journey. To truly comprehend what we are eating, we need to understand the short life they lived and the nature of the death they endured. Only then can we decide whether to endorse these systems or to support a kinder world for animals by choosing not to use them for food.
I mean, they're going to be used as food regardless, but there's a difference between like that shit and, I mean, I guess there is no way to humanely kill a chicken or any other creature, but like come on, we have to be pragmatists here, okay? Like, people are still going to eat meat. They're still going to want the real thing. And denying it to them. Like, the question I always ask vegans is, like, how are you going to enforce any of this? Because most of you all are pacifists. You're here because you only care about the animals. I get it. But, like, how are you going to enforce anything that you want? Because you cannot guilt the average person into not eating meat by showing them stuff like this. To just be like, oh, that's sad, and then go get some chicken tendies. So, like, my question to them is always, like, how are you going to enforce this? Like, are you going to, under socialism, because a lot of vegans do have anti-capitalist politics and identify as either communists or anarchists, like, under the post-revolutionary system, like, are you going to have an enforcement bureau that's going around rounding up people for eating meat? I don't think anybody wants that. That's not going to happen. People are going to take that, especially in the United States, where everybody has guns, and they're going to continue to have guns even after the revolution. So, yeah, this is fucking horrible shit. But there's not going to be any solution to it under capitalism. Like, this gas chamber shit is going to continue happening as long as capitalism and imperialism exists. So what we're talking about is, like, what's going to happen in a post-revolutionary scenario. Like I said, we're obviously going to scale back the consumption of meat. Like, there's not going to be any more, like, meat at every meal. We just heard the sister talking about, like, there's ways to veganize a lot of cuisines that we're used to. Lentils, chickpeas, all that shit. And I've had that stuff. It's really good. And the only reason that they're doing this stuff is because there's such a high demand for meat. People are used to eating meat. People like meat. They must have meat at every meal. They must eat fast food. I know a guy that eats McDonald's 3 times a day, 5 days out of the week. So as long as there's that demand for stuff like that, like, that's what's going to happen. Why the egg industry shreds newborn baby chicks. I'm not watching that. So when people think about veganism, they usually think of people for the ethical treatment of animals. Here's the speciesism thing again that I don't believe in. Bigotry begins when categories are such as race, age, gender, disability, sexual orientation, or species are used to justify discrimination. I don't believe that, like, animals have the same rights as humans, just to be blunt. Like, I don't. Like, I have not seen a single convincing argument. All I've seen, like, I'm not swayed by moral arguments. I'm swayed by facts. I'm swayed by, like, okay, does this animal, no, they're not zoophiles. They don't fuck the animals. What's wrong with you? But, like, I'm not swayed by stuff like that. Like, emotional appeals, that's the refuge of the mountebank, the refuge of the charlatan. But a lot of vegan recipes, and talking about, like, what happens. Here's PETA in action. They do a lot of stunts like this. Creepy welding mask wearing monkey experimenter goes to Harvard. Massive blow up fez follows shrine circus over big top cruelty. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about, like circuses. There's absolutely no reason to have, like, animals at circuses. They treat these animals like shit. Like, that's why a lot of them end up getting loose and killing their handlers. Like, you don't just take wild animals out of the jungle and out of the savannah and chain them up and expect them to come out and dance for you. So I would support stopping the use of animals in circuses, because there's no use for them. There's no fucking use for them. You don't bring a majestic creature out and just make them dance for you, and then take them backstage and beat the shit out of them and shoot them with darts, do all that horrible shit. They like to dress up as animals. Here's one. Here's an idea. You can swap pigs for simulators. Like, technology is so advanced, like, you don't have to cut up the live thing anymore. You don't have to cut up a dead thing anymore. Like, you can literally use a simulator. We already know from generations of dissecting animals what the insides of these creatures look like. So why not use a simulation? Ties to monkey labor prompts PETA to dump coconuts outside Whole Foods. That sounds very racist. PETA helps goats get out of a bad situation. Polar bears swarm Starbucks over pro-dairy policy. PETA occupied a Starbucks location in Ohio because the chain's upcharge for vegan milk encourages people to opt for dairy, which is a top producer of the greenhouse gases that melt ice caps and kill polar bears. They're also going to kill us. Young dolphin defenders descend on SeaWorld. If you wouldn't eat a cat, why eat a fish? That's the thing. Like, all of these people are white. I've not seen a single black person in any of these pictures. I guess white people are the only people that have time for these types of stunts. But I mean, they're good at lobbying and direct actions. But like, I just don't. It's just moral bullshit. This I think is dope. Now these are some vegans I could rock with. Some white vegans I could rock with.
When you are in a situation where,
like these people, the Animal Liberation Front, like they actually go in and they liberate the animals. I've always been a sucker for direct action. Like, put your money where your mouth is. Like, quit talking about it. Be about it, as my uncle would say. They rescued 88 mice and 313 rats. They shouldn't have done that. I don't like rodents.
when you
that stupid thing scrolled up. Here's another one. 108 animals liberated from a lab breeder. The ALF liberates over 100 animals from interfauna. They rescued 82 cute little beagles and 26 cute little rabbits. They tried to free a dolphin. Where are you going to take the dolphin at? The dolphin needs water. In 1997, Barry was found guilty of a years-long one-man arson campaign. I mean, these people have some fortitude. Like, I admire shit like this.
Convicted on arson and explosives charges, one of his targets was Boots the chemist. He has already starved himself longer than most of the IRA hunger strikers, and like them, his demands seem unlikely to be met. Horn was strong enough a few days ago to rise from bed and wave to his supporters holding vigil outside the hospital.
So he starved himself to death. That sucks, but hey, it was for a good cause. Like I said, I admire it. So, more from PETA. One thing that I rarely see vegans talk about, well, I guess I should say that because this is literally a vegan website, but the police and the military, like, they love to use animals. They love to use animals. And I guess I haven't seen the vegans that I know from the internet or from real life, like, talking about this. It's more like just trying to morally guilt people into not getting a chicken sandwich. But, yeah. So you got this fucking pig in Salisbury, North Carolina, who lifts and hauls a police dog named Zool in a chokehold. There's a video, trigger warning, if you don't want to see a dog getting beat up.
good. No witnesses.
What the fuck? We're good. No witnesses.
Jay! Is your camera on?
No, my power's off.
I think mine's on. Hey, you can flip my cameras on. Just the front camera.
Yeah. So yeah, fuck that. I'm a supporter of banning the use of canines by police because not only is that cruel to try to turn dogs into killers, like these dogs are literally like sworn officers. That's cruel and inhumane. And like they all love the sick dogs on black people. So as a person who is very attached to having my black ass intact, I unite with vegan comrades who support banning canines. They took the video down. Nobody wants to see any more of that horrible shit anyways. But yeah, if you'll murder a human, if you'll choke a human to death, you'll do horrible things to a dog. Officer's name was James Hampton. Also, the military. They love dogs. Four-legged fighters. They may not have actual boots on the ground, but you'll find U.S. military working dogs serving wherever American troops do. They are as lovable as they are loyal, but make no mistake, these are highly skilled warriors, trained by the best to serve alongside them. If I recall correctly, they use mostly German Shepherds and Malinois. So they're training these creatures to be, I don't know why that happened. They're training these dogs. They're training these dogs to be fucking vicious killers. Nothing but. And if I recall correctly, after the war or whatever, after the deployment is over, a lot of these dogs end up being euthanized because they're so vicious. Like, you cannot rehome them because they attack everything they see.
Good boy! Good boy!
They probably undoubtedly abuse the shit out of these animals too. Like, this is just propaganda. Their barks are bad, their bites are brutal, but before military working dogs become this, they start out like this. So they're literally raising these dogs from birth to be murder machines. DOD, Department of Defense, finds its canine recruits from elite breeders around the world, but a select group, around 13%, are born and bred into the U.S. military through the DOD Military Dog Breeding Program, aka the Puppy Program. These puppies come from one place, the 341st Training Squadron at Joint Base San Antonio. About 50 to 90 puppies are born into the program every year. The only breed the program raises is the Belgian Malinois, considered elite ideal for the military because of their high energy, strong sniffers, trainability, agility, speed, drive, work ethic, loyalty, and when needed, fierceness, aka skill at being murderers. They resemble German Shepherds but are more compact. While their mothers are still nursing them, their human caregivers start exposing them to various stimuli to get a feel for their personalities. By various stimuli, I suppose they mean horrid abuse. They watch for promising traits for future military service. Inquisitiveness, sociability, eagerness to play with objects, like human flesh, not overly aggressive or afraid of noises. At 6 to 8 weeks old, the puppies go live with foster families for about 6 months to get the kind of socialization beneficial for all puppies. Most of the families live in the San Antonio area, and the squadron still works with the puppies at least once a month in this time to develop their basic hunting instincts and stability in different environments. When they leave their foster families, the pups enter an intensive training phase on base. They practice basic obedience and bite work. They learn to release things when told, recognize odors, and respond to them with a specific behavior like sitting. Trainers also expose the dogs to situations and environments they may encounter on an installation or in a combat zone. Finally, at about age 1, the dogs are evaluated for entry into the big time, the military working dog training program. The squadron uses the consignment test on them, the same test that a dog must pass in order to be purchased by the Department of Defense. So, yeah. Obviously, that's propaganda, but they're training these dogs to be killers or to be killed. So, do vegans have a point? Yes, the fuck they do. Like, just from what I've seen in an hour and a half, there are serious things wrong. I mean, I already knew this, but like just watching those videos of how they treat animals in slaughterhouses and listening to that sister demonstrated to me that there is a strong tradition of non-white veganism, and there is a strong tradition of abuse in capitalist factory farming. And am I going to become a vegan? Absolutely not. I love steak and hamburgers too much. Plus, one dude in front of a microphone and webcam not eating meat, that's not going to stop the atrocities that are taking place in slaughterhouses. So what would a socialist scaling back of meat production look like? Obviously, all of those giant industrial slaughterhouses and factory farms are going to be closed because there is no humane way to have 15,000 chickens or 5,000 hogs crammed up next to each other. Those animals are going to be traumatized. And not only is it going to decrease the quality of the meat, it's inhumane. So there's still going to be there's going to be collective farms because one of the principles of socialism is the collectivization of agriculture. So maybe a limit on the number of cows and chickens and hogs and sheep you can raise. And also a socialist education campaign on vegan alternatives. Like, people are not going to engage in this stuff unless you teach it. Just like the sister mentioned that the government wants us to drink milk, even though a substantial chunk of black people and almost all Asian and indigenous people are lactose intolerant. So under socialism, the government can teach people how to make vegan alternatives. Maybe eat real meat once a week or once a month. You'll still have it, but it's unsustainable for the environment, and it's cruel to the animals, and it's cruel to the workers themselves, just that workload alone. But it's just a fucked up thing to slaughter thousands and thousands of animals in the most barbaric way possible just so you could have a steak every day. You shouldn't be eating a steak every day. You're going to get gallstones. So veganism definitely has benefits for one's personal health. Maybe I might transition to it, or at least vegetarianism, as I get older, because especially with black men, we eat like shit, and it's important to not eat like shit if you want to live a long life. I mean, stress already kills us about 5 years earlier than our white male counterparts from the same generation, so that's something I'm going to have to consider. But yeah, I respect highly from what I've seen from the sister. The New African and Indian and Latino vegan tradition. I don't respect the white vegan tradition, with the exception of the Animal Liberation Front, because they actually put their money where their mouth is, because it's just so self-righteous. It's so self-righteous, and they take a oddly moral, individualistic Gandhian tack that has never really changed anything anywhere on the face of this earth. So, do vegans have a point? Are vegans correct? In certain aspects, yes. In most aspects, actually, yes. Large-scale animal production and consumption is bad for the environment. It's bad for the animals. It's bad for the workers. And it's bad for human beings. Eating meat every day isn't all that good for you. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, vegans do have a point. But ultimately, it's going to take socialism to make mass veganism an actual thing. because only under socialism will the government have the impetus to make it a thing. Because under capitalism, the impetus is to make as much money as possible. How do they make money? By gassing chickens to death. So if we're going to stop gassing chickens to death and giving our entire population heart disease and gallstones, we need socialism. Socialism are gassed chickens.